This is the Aftermarket Radio Network. It's your Weekly Blitz with Chris, keeping you in the game.
Are you ready to supercharge your auto repair business? This is Coach Chris Cotton from AutoFix Auto Shop Coaching. The Weekly Blitz is where industry expertise and business innovation collide, revving your engines for the week ahead. Every episode has game-changing insights, up-to-the-minute industry updates, and practical tips to shift your business into high gear. We're talking about stuff you didn't even know you didn't know, folks. This episode is brought to you by Shop Marketing Pros, the experts in marketing for top-tier auto repair shops. If you're running a successful shop and want to take it to the next level, Shop Marketing Pros is without a doubt your best option. From websites and SEO to social media and digital ads, Shop Marketing Pros help shop owners just like you fill your bays, grow your revenue, and build the life you've been working for. If you're ready to take the guesswork out of your marketing, visit shopmarketingpros.com/Chris to get a free digital marketing inspection and start building the shop of your dreams today. Well, hello and good morning, everybody. I hope you've had a fabulous weekend. In some aspects, I feel like spring has sprung, and I feel like in others, it's not. So you never know where we're at or what we're doing. What I wanted to share with you today is kind of my state of the union or the state of the industry update, if you will. I don't think I've ever done this on a podcast before. Usually the first quarter of the year, as I go and have our peer group meetings, I kind of give this talk on where I think the industry's headed. So what I've done is I'm going to take this presentation that I've been giving and I'm going to give it to you. So you'll kind of maybe understand where my thoughts on the year are going to go and a couple other things. And yeah, so we're just going to get into it today. One of the first things that I ran across when I was putting this together is a vehicle dependability study by J.D. Power. If you're listening, I want you to think of like the theme for 2025. Number one is consistency. Be consistent in your business. Number two is, I think your potential for growth is only limited by your brain. And that's kind of what I want you to think about as I go through this. Vehicle problems have reached the highest level since 2009. They've had a 6% increase in problems per 100 vehicles compared to 2024. These mass market brands have been affected due to software defects a lot. You know, when we're talking about problems per vehicle, it also includes the software. It includes all the gadgets and gadgets. You have these highly digital heads-up displays on it. Recently, I drove a 2025 vehicle, and it's got to be something similar to what fighter pilots are, maybe even better what fighter pilots are, just the heads-up displays, the information, how you get it, and everything else, which leads to things breaking. So one of the other things, as you read these dependability reports, is the supply chain is still complaining about disruptions from the pandemic. I don't know why they haven't fixed this or been able to fix this yet. And then also, what you're going to notice theme-wise is we have higher vehicle prices now than ever. So what you're going to see is cars break more often, higher vehicle prices, just this cycle of people are not buying new cars. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about, for those of you that have been in the industry for more than 15 years, there was a time back then when coaching companies were telling everybody, hey, cars are more dependable, and we're going to have to get into preventative maintenance in order to stay alive and be good stewards of our customers' resources, taking care of their vehicles, everything. So cars were unreliable. We had to move to preventative maintenance. Now, cars have become unreliable again. So a lot of you out there are just flooded with repair work, and I think that's great. I would also tell you, still take care of your customers' preventative maintenance needs. Be on top of that. Make sure they know about their cars. Make sure they're learning about their cars. But I think we're having a time where cars are less dependable. So we're back in a cycle of, hey, we're fixing cars because they're older, because newer stuff's more broken than ever, and because of this parts obsolescence issue. If we just talk about vehicle dependability and how they ranked, according to the J.D. Power, Lexus ranks highest overall in vehicle dependability for the third consecutive year. And then if you look at premium brands, Cadillac ranked second, and then Porsche ranked third. This shocked me. I don't even see that many Buicks on the road. Maybe that's why they rank highest, is because there's so few sold. But in the mass market segment, Buick ranked highest, Mazda second, and Toyota ranked third. I just thought that was pretty interesting. Also, for the first time in over 40 years, the Ford F-150 is no longer America's best-selling vehicle. Now, if you look at the data and see that the Ford F-Series is still the best series ever, but if you just look at the Ford F-150, the new data from Jado Dynamics shows that the Toyota RAV4 is in the top spot now. And people are pointing to the hybrid powertrain and its dependability as a major factor in that surge. I think if you look at the numbers, there were 375,000 Toyota RAV4 sold last year, and then like 340,000 F-150s. So if you're not working on Toyotas or Toyota hybrids, you might start thinking about that. So when we talk about vehicle affordability and how it's changed a shift in consumer preference, this is the other thing that I read in the reports, is people are shifting away again from SUVs and pickups more towards smaller cars. I think most of it's because of the prices. Average price of a new car is $37,400. Average price of a new SUV or CUV is $43,600. And then a new truck average is $54,000-$55,000. And this is before tariff pricing or anything else that happens or is going to continue to happen. Again, consumers are shifting towards cars for affordability. The intent to buy a SUVs dropped about 1%, and then truck purchases intent went down 2%. And then we had an increase in sedan preference among older consumers, 35 to 54. Hey, that's my age group. I don't like you be calling me old, but whatever. And then 75 plus age groups. And then, so the budget conscious buyers in the $75,000 to $100,000 in income are moving to cars. You know, what's the market-wide impact of that? You've got inflation hit 3%. Consumers are delaying vehicle purchases. You know, our average vehicle age is around 13 years and growing every year. And automakers are starting to reduce features to cut costs and increase affordability. I had this in my original report, and this is kind of like dodged out since then. Nissan's recent developments, you know, their merger failed with Honda. I don't know what's going to happen to the Honda, or excuse me, to the Nissan brand. You know, they cut 9,000 jobs. They're cutting production capacity by 20% to align with current sales figures. Nissan has the capacity to produce about 5 million units, but only sells about 3.5 million annually. The Nissan's also discontinuing the Altima model, which, if based on what we just talked about and what we know, I don't know why, because if people are shifting towards cars instead of SUVs and trucks, it doesn't make any sense for them to get rid of the Altima. But part of that is they've just shifted towards EVs for whatever reason. I don't know. We'll see what happens with Nissan. If we think about the tariffs a little bit, and I know as I record this, there was some discussion about whether Trump was going to be able or going to follow through on his 25% tariff. Yesterday, I believe he did, on Canadian and Mexican vehicles, 10% on Chinese imports, and 100% on EVs. You know, if we're looking at a 25% tariff, depending on where it's made and everything else, that could add another $6,300 to the price of a new vehicle, and it's going to strain customer affordability even more. While I'm talking about customer affordability, I want to mention, for the first time ever, American credit card holders, or the banks that back the credit cards, have over it's not even a million, excuse me, over $1 trillion in money that's owed to them. It's actually 1.2 trillion. And then if you go back and look at the curve, right before COVID, credit card loans were going up, really, really steep curve. Then we hit COVID and it dropped down again to the bottom. And then it's picked up on that same curve again. It's very interesting to see where we were headed. We got this influx of money. People stopped buying stuff. It dropped. And then now we're over $1.2 trillion. Also, for the first 9 months of last year, credit card holders wrote off about $48 billion in bad debt or debt that was unrecoverable. If I was to talk about one thing that scares me about our business or industry, it's the ability for customers to have credit to pay for the things they need to fix these cars that are older, breaking more often, and whatever. So that's my really what if number or my what if question for the years. What happens if people can't pay for their repairs? So if you get back in it, we've got production and supply chain disruptions based on the tariffs. They're saying that we could have a 30% drop in production for affected vehicles. Again, this is going to lead to shortages, but delayed repairs. If you're able to get in your market and get those things fixed for those people, they will love you forever. Parts costs are going to increase. That's just part of what it is. They're also saying if there's like a tariff winter, vehicle sales could even decline by another 10%. This is going to force a shift in labor, things like that. What it means for us is we should expect higher costs for replacement parts due to supply chain disruptions, but we also need to be prepared for customers holding on to vehicles longer, increasing repair and maintenance demand. If we look at the industry and look at what we're market in, the do-it-for-me market, who's winning that? There's 3 groups driving growth. Number 1, repair specialists. That's 40% of the total do-it-for-me product growth. There's foreign specialists, about 30% of total do-it-for-me product growth. And then vehicle dealers, 28% do-it-for-me product growth. The interesting, if you're a foreign specialist, like you only work on Porsche or you only work on Audi, those people are growing and growing rapidly. Diesel repair, if you specialize in diesel repair, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about specialists, repair specialists. If you do something like electric repair or things like that, that's the product growth. The interesting thing when I looked at this is there are kind of 4 groups that are falling behind in these categories, or we're losing bays in these categories and they're losing revenue. Repair shops that are service stations and garages, they lost nearly $2 billion in product volume. The discount stores, mass merchandisers with bays, this would be like Costco, Sam's, any of those places, Walmart, a mass merchandiser with bays, discounting store. They've lost 10% of their market share in the last year. Auto parts stores with bays fell about 0.4 billion. That's your Pep Boys, places like that. Tire stores, they had a small growth, only about 1% of the total do-it-for-me increase, though. How does that impact the aftermarket? There's fewer service stations, fewer repair options. These shifts are going to continue into 2025 and beyond. And we're going to, have changing brands and distribution as the sales concentrate among those top 3 groups. Pretty interesting. I put some numbers together for the technicians, the Technician Workforce 2025 Insights. When you look at recruiting stats, 36% prefer to be paid hourly or salary. The work schedule preferences is 32% of those surveyed prefer 4 days or 10 hours a day, 4 tens. 32% prefer 5 days, 8 hours a day. 48% of technicians are willing to commute 30 to 59 minutes for the right shop. 36% of them have considered becoming a mobile mechanic, and 81% would visit local schools if given work time to do so and help recruit more technicians into the industry. I thought that was a great statistic. When we look at more of the, technician satisfaction type stuff, 53% say their shop provides good benefits. 58% say their shop provides fair compensation. 58% say their shop provides necessary equipment. 49% feel valued and respected by management. 66% say shop management does not communicate well. We need to do better out there. 70% say their shop lacks a clear career path. We know that. I've talked about that repeatedly. 72% say shops do not adequately train or compensate mentors. And 74% of technicians say their shop does not support local schools to help recruit new people into the industry. If we look more industry-wide stats, only 50% would recommend their employer to a friend. 78% say higher pay is the most urgent issue in addressing the technician shortage. 58% report seeing more females in the industry. And 55% of technicians surveyed knew in high school that they wanted to be technicians. I thought that was very, very interesting. But we've got room to improve in there, and that gives you a place to start. If we kind of look at new vehicle sales, between 2015 and 2019, new vehicle sales averaged 17.3 million per year. Since 2020, sales have fallen by over 12 million total new vehicle sales were 17.3 million. Since 2020, sales have fallen by over 12 million vehicles. So new vehicle sales are expected to stay below 17 million for at least 2 more years, possibly longer. What's leading people to that? Changing driving patterns. New vehicles, which are less than 5 years, average 14,000 miles per year. The older vehicles, 12 years and older, average fewer than 8,500 miles per year. However, declining new vehicle sales have shifted mileage to these older vehicles, right? So since 2020, over 420 billion miles have shifted from newer to older vehicles. In those categories we were just talking about, older vehicles are now just racking up the miles. And this trend is going to continue at least through 2026. You know, if we're thinking about how does this help our industry, it's more repairs per mile for older vehicles. Older vehicles require more repairs. The aftermarket repair volume is rising as a result. And the numbers I found is by 2026, nearly 700 billion miles will have shifted to older vehicles. This is going to drive the growth in the aftermarket product and service sales even more. And so repair shops are going to have to prepare for increased demand. Key takeaways to this are fewer new cars, more older vehicles on the road. Older vehicles require more repairs per mile. Major shift in driving patterns is fueling aftermarket growth, and repair shops should position themselves to take advantage of this trend. Earlier, I said consistency. I think we've kind of fallen back to maybe a return to the times of yore when we were so busy fixing cars that we couldn't do maintenance. But I'm going to caution you, you still have to do the repairs, you still have to do maintenance, and you have to figure out how to capitalize on this shift in the industry. And if you need to add more bays, if you need to add more technicians, what do you need to do to not be the shop in town that's booked 3 to 4 weeks out? I think that's a losing proposition for you and your customers. I'd like to give another shout out to our sponsor, Shop Marketing Pros. They're the only marketing company I recommend, and they handle all of the marketing for my own shop as well. If you're serious about growth, you need strategies that actually work, better websites, higher Google rankings, and ads that bring real customers through your doors. I want you to visit shopmarketingpros.com/Chris in order to partner with a team that understands your business, because every great shop deserves marketing that's just as great. Thanks for tuning into the Weekly Blitz. Remember, it's time to rise, grind, and keep your mindset positive. Until next time, this is Coach Chris Cotton signing off. Have a great day, everybody.
You've been listening to the Weekly Blitz with Coach Chris Cotton on the AftermarketRadioNetwork.com. Follow Chris on your favorite podcast listening app. Let him know what you'd like him to cover. His email is in the show notes. Chris is all for advancing the aftermarket.